don't understand or what I do understand. Yeah, my questions we've already known. Yeah.
So basically what I'm doing is creating a platform in which people's imaginations become tangible, so that the things that you imagine, the things that you're seeing, you can share with others. So you don't have to go through Maya, you don't have to go through a modeling software. You can exchange ideas without printing them out, sending them to other people. It's an environment that's tailored to each person, so that that person is able to work free from any of the environmental stressors, anything that they might bring to the table. If they have anxiety, work-related anxiety, if they have maybe some attention deficit disabilities, that the software will mitigate all of that, so that when they sit down at the table with someone to collaborate, that all of that has been mitigated and is no longer an issue for them. So that when two people come together, there's nothing between them except the ideas that they have to share. So that's phase, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is giving people the tools that they need to exchange these ideas without kind of the formal, the way that things have traditionally been done. So printing things out, sending them to each other, redlining them, handing them back. That's another aspect of it. And the third aspect of it is putting people in an environment that triggers their creativity, triggers their imagination, so that the things that they produce are even more, are pushed as far as possible. So everybody's different, and the things that push us creatively are different. So putting someone in an environment that stimulates them is different for everybody else, right? So for me, like if I'm in kind of a science fiction environment where there's spaceships and transports and all of that, to me that's really exciting, and I start having ideas like, oh, what if we could do this, but that's for me, so that's different for everybody. Some people, nature is really important to them, so putting them on the top of a mountain vista where they can see 100 miles in every direction might allow them to have some ideas that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have. Taking someone from rural America, rural countryside, wherever they're from, and putting them into a city environment, putting them into an urban environment would change the way that they think and the way that they produce. And the inverse of that is also true. Taking someone from an urban environment, putting them into a rural environment would also change the way that they think about the project that they're working on. So basically what this software is intended to do is it's a platform that changes people's perceptions, changes people's reactions to the space in which they occupy for the benefit of the work that they're trying to accomplish. And that's what's great about virtual reality, is it's total freedom. If someone's working on an application for a product that's going to be used in space, put them in an environment where there's no gravity. They will still feel gravity while they are in the software for now. That technology hasn't been developed yet, but they will be able to design for no gravity in no gravity in terms of the way that things behave that they're working on. And that's one example. So another example of that is working in things that are underwater, things that are airborne, things that are landborne, letting the environment in which people work really tailor the work that they accomplish. And my idea is that if you put people in those environments, that they will be able to think within those environments rather than trying to translate the techniques that they use in their current environment into the environment in which their work is intended to be used. So that's kind of on a broad spectrum what we're trying to do. Yeah, you have any response to that?
Yeah, so me being a gamer and also an architect, I can really relate to what you're trying to do, like to share that moment where you see something specifically in the virtual world. Like if you're in a mountain, you feel something, and when you have that same person playing that same moment, they somehow have a similar perspective or
Sure.
feeling. So that I like that about it. But what's the difference between what is being already processed, like motion capture when it comes to animation? Like what is different with that from what you're doing? Because you're talking about this is just the beginning, and then
We're just talking.
this is just the beginning, but then you kind of like maybe this grows back or grow farther into like using it real life. Mimicking the actual feeling of the virtual space that you.
Well, the idea is that it's a platform, right? So the software is just a tool in the same way that any of our modeling applications are just tools which we can use to represent an idea. So this is just yet another tool set, but this particular tool set learns about the user and updates itself for that user. So if you're talking about animation, wouldn't it be cool for an animator to be able to exist within the environment that their animation takes place? You know, so if you're doing a 2D animation for a television show, you are actually standing within the three-dimensional world that you were animating within and able to kind of tailor the way that things move within that environment. Does that make sense?
Well, the question is if you still need a other program to kind of like create the
Right.
inner world, and then you plug in that into your software
Right.
platform, and that's when you kind of go into that of that whatever you model in other programs, and then you kind of like seeing a one person like first person perspective. But you still need that first step of creating it yourself.
Sure. Yeah, you do. And so there's a place within the software platform for plugins that are written to allow for different applications to work within this environment. But the main goal is well, there's going to be a series of tools. This hasn't been developed yet, but there's going to be a series of tools that allow people to complete tasks, perform tasks within this environment without any knowledge of any other applications. It's a really basic, really kind of beginner set of tools that allow people to come together and share ideas without needing to know the same software. You know, if I were to meet with a doctor and we wanted to collaborate on something, I'm going to have a completely different skill set than he or she would. So there's going to be built into the platform a series of tools that allow us to exchange ideas without needing to know the same software. So now when you get into the more esoteric, the more specific tasks and more specific projects, obviously there's going to need to be some amount of skill within other programs. Let's go back to animation. There's going to need to be some knowledge of Maya. There's going to need to be some knowledge of texturing and shading. But those are things that you can learn from other users within the environment who has those specific skill sets, and then you can come together and meet. You can meet those people and then come together within a specific group. What they're called labs within the software. Generate a lab of people with the same skill sets or similar skill sets, similar ideas or ideals about a project, and work on that. But that kind of brings up another main aspect of this, which is giving people experience, giving people, what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost it. But showing people things that other people are working on that they might not have any knowledge of yet. So just through engaging with the environment, engaging with the platform and the software, you're going to be exposed to types of work and types of projects that you might not have known about previously. And and that way it expands your horizons, it expands your perceptions on the types of work that are being done, and then you can either try and find a place within an existing project that you can take place, or that you can work in, or you can, if you're the person that has that idea, you can find people that might have skills that help you with your project to come together and finish that. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, it's making a lot more sense, but I kind of, the way I see it is, when you say you can share your perspective or your design and your idea, it's pretty much giving that, or taking care of that gap between your knowledge of how you perceive certain spaces with your imagination and seeing them through 3D space into a program with their mind, right, or whatever, super other program. Versus a person, let's say a client that don't have any knowledge or any training eye to kind of see what it is.
Right.
So when you have this program and you go into it, you kind of say like, this is what I meant when I designed your house. This is what I meant when I designed the product. This is what I meant when I designed your room. But it can go even like more far. You can go past that.
Yeah.
Well,
there is an application for that, of course, but I'm seeing this more for the professional that is working with other professionals, collaborating with other professionals, prior to ever bringing the client bringing the client into the project. So yes, this is a platform that can be used for project visualization for clients, but it's intended to be more of a collaborative platform where the professionals can get together and collaborate prior to ever bringing the client into it. It's okay, you can just watch it. But that's one of the interesting things about this is that I'm trying to leave it as open as possible so that anyone that comes to this application with any ideas can use this platform to push their ideas.
In any field.
In any field. So
So that example that you were saying, like a doctor trying to work with, I don't know if you say you specifically or an architect per se, how would that work? How would this program help exactly? Would it be the architect showing the doctor through it, or can it be the other way around? Like even if the doctor have a totally different skill set, and they don't have any idea of how to manage, like use this program per se, they still need this person that has more like three-dimensional skill sets to kind of like translate what that person that had that skill to the other person, but he cannot really go the other way around.
Well, the hope is that we would be able to go the other way around. The hope is that go both ways, and that's going to take more development, and that's going to take more kind of analysis of the idea.
So you kind of, like what you were saying, you kind of to get it, I don't want to say dumb enough, but kind of like simple enough for other people other than only people with three-dimensional skills to be able to use it.
There was a game that came out on Facebook a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago now, and it was just a puzzle that the users were able to play, but the people that developed the puzzle developed it so that when the users complete the puzzle, what they're actually doing is they're looking for patterns within specific DNA strands that searches for a specific combination of elements that combats this invasive species. And so the people playing the game have no idea that this is what they're doing. They're just playing a game.
Yeah.
But they're actually computing scientific research. That's the type of thing that we're trying to do here. So there was Google had a block editor for their Android applications. It's since been discontinued, but it was basically just a puzzle. There were puzzle pieces that could only fit within each other in a certain orientation. So you knew that if you had this shape of puzzle piece, you had to connect it to this piece. And just by connecting these virtual puzzle pieces together, they were able to build applications for Android phones. One example of just using very basic pattern recognition to generate a larger idea. So that's what I'm talking about when I say kind of removing the esotericness of language and meeting somewhere in the middle where you don't have to have the same skill sets. Both people don't have to know Maya, both people don't have to know 3ds Max to be able to exchange these ideas of these three-dimensional objects.
I see what you're saying, because if now you're thinking, you know Minecraft, I'm bad enough at it. And then even though many people that play don't have any skills when it comes to 3D modeling, they still have the skill through the simple action or I don't want to say, it's not exactly action, let's say action, or a button to kind of create by stocking blocks and kind of create their own space, their own houses, their own like virtual, but still they have that possibility. And then obviously it can be kids, it can be teenagers, adults, it can be professionals. I guess it's is that what you wanna?
Well, obviously
kinda,
something more.
I'm just trying to look for a simple way to kind of like.
Right. I mean, I think that's a pretty good example. Another example is something like Second Life, where people that are not trained as architects can come together and create virtual architecture. They can then sell to virtual clients. But the idea is that this takes on kind of another level of development where it's for people that are professionals, that are trained in these fields, but just allowing them to come together and exchange ideas. So the doctor analogy was one. Another analogy is I'm currently working on a production design team for a feature film. And so we're able to use this platform to present ideas for our world, our virtual world that we're creating within this film. So that the director, the producer, the casting director can see how this environment will work. You can walk through, it's fine. But so, as a production design member, using this platform to basically just present a three-dimensional space to the actors, to the people, so that they can virtually walk through their blocking and see where they're supposed to be within the set. And that's one way in which people from two different fields can come together through the use of this software and kind of see, the designer and then the actor, how they come together and exchange ideas without having to rely on two-dimensional drawings or the other traditional methods.
So in that case, it will become more of what is it? Like a tryout? Not like a tryout, like maybe we say actors or I'm not sure what to say right here. Yeah, kind of like a double, like a rehearsal way of using your program through the director saying, this is what I want to do and this is how you should react.
A trial of this particular software, is that what you're saying? Or?
No, a trial of what they're filming through that software.
Right.
Okay.
It allows them to kind of practice what they're going to do and see what they're going to, before the set's ever completed, they'll be able to walk through a virtual set and see where they're supposed to be and practice that. In the same way that Formula One drivers, rather than, because Formula One drivers only get so much time on the track, and they don't get practice time. The only practice time they get is the day before the race.
No,
So what they do is they play PlayStation, and they actually play the track they're going to be racing the next day in order to learn as much about the track as possible. That's another way that this can be used. You bring in a 3D model of a virtual track, you allow the driver to move through it. So that's just yet another kind of way that this could be implemented. The idea is that all of these things that we're talking about could be available to the user if it's important enough for the user to go about kind of initiating that.
Let's see. Really, it's something.
It's just taking our intangible imagination and attempting to make it tangible.
Now you were also commenting about using these to people that have difficulties, or like, I don't know if you were speaking of people that have mental difficulties or physical difficulties.
Well, that's one thing that I think architecture needs to do more of. I think architecture needs to respond to people with challenges.
Okay.
You know, architecture needs to respond to people that work an 8 to 5, work an 8 to 6, work an 8 to 7, and have work-related anxiety or have attention deficit disorder. Architecture needs to begin to respond to people on a physiological level so that to mitigate those issues. In the way that Alto worked in his hospital designs with allowing for enough natural light, allowing for enough cross ventilation, that the patients that were there that were trying to get well could actually feel like they were part of nature rather than part of a cubicle with fluorescent light and air conditioning. That needs to happen in the corporate environment, in the business environment, as well as in the healthcare environment. And I think architecture's kind of let us down when it comes to that. So
I would say it's more like we don't fly enough. We don't keep that fly. We always become the client's dog, not dog, but we always there to kind of like do what the client says. And if the client says, well, I just want a crappy office, we can do so much.
Right.
But I do understand, and I do agree that we can do better. We can definitely do better.
So we have several skins. We have our physiological skin, that protects our inner organs. We have our clothing, which protects our physiological skin. We have architecture that kind of encases all of that. And then we have technology, which is kind of another skin that is layered onto architecture. And I think we researched that relationship. I think we researched that relationship between architecture and technology, the way that those two are layered upon each other, that it's no longer an issue of, well, the client asked for this, so we're going to provide them this. It's that the client asked for this, so we give them this, but we give them this with an added layer that allows the project to work in the way that we feel it needs to. Mitigating stress, mitigating ADD, but also within the healthcare fields. Within the healthcare fields, there's already a genre of medicine called cybertherapy. And what it does is it puts patients within a virtual environment that's specifically tailored to help them combat whatever phobias they might have, whatever anxieties they might have. It's especially used in cases of autism. We're putting an autistic patient in an environment that challenges them or relieves some stressor that allows them to realize what life is like with or without that, and then grow from that and move forward. So I think architecture can do that as well. It's not strictly a technological thing. I think as architects we need to start thinking on that level.
It's more like a physical aspect of how to treat it.
Sure, exactly.
Well, I guess I could ask you a couple things about what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, please.
So I wanted to somehow implement video gaming techniques into the way of creating architecture. Obviously, after reading your stuff, seeing what you're doing, it kind of gets me like, could I even use that? Could I go that way, or should I go a different way? Because I didn't want to, or I do not want to go with a typical, well, I want to create architecture through video gaming, as in the video game feeds me and then I produce as a way of inspiration.
Right.
No, I don't want to do that way. I want to go deeper in, as in, I like the idea of creating architecture through storylines. Like have a storyline of what is happening from the start, let's say the door, to the end, which is, I don't know, the roof. Let's say it that way. And through that, I create multiple scenes or multiple areas or multiple feelings throughout the building. Maybe the idea is just a building. Maybe the idea is city. Maybe the idea is a group of buildings that create this specific enclosing ambience. I don't know. But I'm in that position right now to figure out what I want to do or what I don't want to do. And like I said, reading your stuff kind of like bring me into, do I want to go into the typical wall of creating architecture through virtual tools or virtual softwares where it can help you kind of like virtually understand what you're trying to create. But then again, what's the difference? That's why I asked the difference between that and creating a render animation. Like where you can pretty much say, okay, this is how you walk through it,
Right.
and this is what you should feel. But then you have the capacity of moving freely, of if you were in that moment, which is, I guess that's what rendering animation would restrain you not be able to do. So I don't know what you think. I don't know.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind with that is you're talking about your workflow as you approach this concept, this project. Kind of the internal debate that you're having with the tools that you want to use, the methodologies that you want to pursue over the development of this project. And one thing I would kind of encourage you to do is look to, when you say video gaming, don't think of it as a linear process so much as the door that brings you into the level and the tasks that you have to complete to reach the door at the end of the level. Rather think about it more as an adventure game or as a
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So there's the time that you spend within the environment changes the way that you conceive of the final goal, rather than as a set of tasks that need to be completed to find. And that's the way that we work now. The way we work now is, I have to generate these set of documents in order to present them to the person that's going to be critiquing them. And if it meets the critic's approval, then I can move forward. Don't think about it that way. Rather, think about it, this is a non-linear adventure game that I'm going to be engaged with. And based on that adventure, I'm going to have a series of ideas that I can use to inform my project. So it goes back to the almost phenomenological design process of doing a series of drawings and then seeing how you feel about them. But it's something more constrained than that, it's something more concise than that. It allows you to have this kind of preconceived version of what you intend your final result to be, and then play with it. And play is something that we don't do enough of. Play is the way that children learn how to walk, the way that children learn how to read and communicate with others. And as adults, we don't do enough of that. So video games are one way that we play and we learn, but the problem is that those video games don't teach us what we need to be learning.
Yeah.
There is simply for entertainment. So what if through the exploration that we pursue within a virtual environment, we're actually learning things about ourselves, we're learning things about our project that we can then take into the real world and construct physically.
Yeah, because now that you say exploration, what would you think is the difference between the exploration in a video game, in an adventure video game without any storyline that you're tied with, or any specific missions that you have to follow, goals that you have to follow? You're just free to go, versus getting that feeling of exploration in real life, even if it's a city, even if you go camping, hiking, I don't know. Did you see any difference other than excluding the part that I won't want this real one is that you feel the wind here, you don't feel the wind there, but it's like visually.
Well, obviously the real world is much more vivid. So the real world, you feel the rain on your face when it's raining. You don't just see the drips on your skin.
Yeah, but if you take that off, that little fact,
if you take that off, though, I think what the virtual world allows us is the ability to explore environments that are not available to us in the physical world.
Okay.
I can't explore the craters of the moon right now. One day I might be able to, but currently I'm not able to within the physical realm. Within the virtual realm, I can do that right now. And it might not have the same impact as when I'm actually there, but it still has a very drastic impact on my imagination. And so that's kind of what I'm saying by putting people in these environments that they're able to explore something that they are really excited about, something that they're really interested in, but might not be able to do within the physical realm. Allow them to do it in the virtual realm and tailor it to them in such a way that it allows them to have a new perspective on what they're working on, have a new perception of themselves afterwards, and move forward from there.
Yeah, because even though that's what I brought the issue of, if you count out the film, which I know is a pretty big thing, but even if you're in a disadvantaged world and you're walking, and excluding the fact that, okay, it's a fantasy world, it's a science fiction world, but still, when you go into this fantasy world where there's some stuff that are familiar to you, like flowers, grass, wind, water, even if you don't feel them, your mind still creates that resemblance of feelings, which that's where I was trying to go.
Okay. Well, what you're referring to is the a priori versus a posteriori, which is a priori is generating a conclusion about something prior to experiencing it, and the a posteriori is the opposite. It's your response to something that you have already experienced. So if we think about tailoring these environments a posteriori, if I show thunderclouds rolling in on the horizon, that user is going to know the result of that if they've experienced that before.
Yeah.
If this user has had the experience of driving across the Great Plains and seeing a thunderstorm rolling in and knowing that as that thunderstorm moves closer, it's going to get darker and it's going to get quieter, but then as the wall of rain gets closer, it's going to get louder and louder and louder.
Yeah.
I don't need to show all of that. I just need to show that dark cloud coming in on the horizon for all of those emotions tied with that event to begin to arise within that player.
But then that's what brings your your platform forward, which is this recalling or resemblance of feelings when you project something through that platform and you say like, I don't know exactly what are you, not what are you thinking, but exactly how they're going to use it, or you just have fair ideas. Or well, you're working with filming right now, so I guess you're starting to actually use it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that conversation was like seeing something in a virtual world versus filming it is kind of what it ties these together to the platform of how it just might really work. Even obviously it's not real,
Right.
but it gets to that strong resemblance of your mind creating while you're seeing through your eyes, which I know you're using the hardware of the Oculus, so that obviously that helps a lot.
It helps a lot, but it also hinders, and then you have something on you, So what we have to do really has to kind of push past that.
Well, of course, that's just the first step. The first
But as
outside
technology, as
hardware that
hardware,
you use it.
as
But it's
hardware
other-
continues to improve,
Yeah, but it's
then that's gonna go away.
obviously it's a more profound effect other than just use the keyboard and move through it and see it through a screen. Because you still have, you still notice unconsciously where you're at.
Right.
Versus when you have the Oculus pretty much in your face, and you just let you to see what you see on the screen, then it just takes you somewhere else.
It's
just
more
makes it
immersive.
it's more
immersive.
of course.
So in terms of thinking about your project that way, architecture is an immersive pursuit.
Yeah.
So that's, in fact, one could say it's even more so because you're representing a physical object. Where this is not representing a physical object. object in its current state. Now, someone might use it to represent a physical object. But so when you're thinking about design project, you're not thinking about it in terms of a two-dimensional drawing. You're thinking about it in terms of space and volume and texture and temperature and all of those things. So I guess that goes back to my discussion of physical tools. It just allows the designer to see that better prior to actually, while they're working on it.
And it also helps because your imagination can really do marvels. And it just gives you an idea of what it could be. When using your platform, it will be more like materialized idea of what you're designing. So I guess it's always helpful. That's good.
I mean, renderings fall short when it comes to feeling the weight of a building next to you.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. You walk up next to a building that's made out of cast-in-place concrete.
Yeah.
It's 30, 40 stories tall. Whether or not you see it, you feel it. And it's really hard to represent that in two-dimensional space. It's really hard to represent that in virtual reality, but it's better.
Now, have you thought to add a sound output or input into your platform?
There is sound.
Okay.
There is sound.
That's good.
I have an environment right now that's the beach.
Okay.
You can hear the waves. I have an environment right now that's the inside of a brain within a neuron field.
Now, how big can your platform withstand? Like, how big of space? I don't know if
How big of an explorative space?
Yeah.
At the moment, it's 75 meters by 150 meters, but that's just that's so I could have one space that's the same in each level, but the environment be completely different. So, but that's totally up for debate. That's just, I'm at the alpha stage right now.